massive impact on us as a team. And that's when we can get them to come up with the non-negotiables, agree what they look like, use part of the court session to go, okay, let's see what it looks like, let's agree right now. Now remember, sometimes they will change in what's acceptable and unacceptable. So what I mean by now is, so the team we watched there within communication, what is acceptable now for them, I guarantee, will be unacceptable within a month. Because they'll get better, so it will grow. So then you reset, maybe the same non-negotiable, you reset the standard of what's acceptable and unacceptable for us as a team. So that's organic, but we just baseline it and stretch it, baseline it and stretch it. And then once we've done that is, we just explain the covert review, which I'm going to go into in a bit, and all that is basically saying, if we've done something effective today, and you've done it without me, which is what I want, I need to make sure that I've been good as a coach and you can remember it. So in the next session or the session after, I may throw a situation or scenario in, and I'm not going to say anything, because I want to see if you can remember the stuff we've worked on and apply it without the need for me to give you any help. That's when I know it's really gone in and we're on the right track. If you can't remember it, then we probably haven't covered enough, or I'm helping you too much in that session. So these are the covert recalls that I'm going to be doing all the time, and that's the only thing I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing, because I want to see if you can remember things and put them in place without the need for me. So they understand the value of them, and then I'll show you how to start using them. But this is going to be our most powerful audit tool of how good we are, how if we're putting the right level of content in, if we're moving on at the right pace, this will give us fact evidence to know we're on the right track, or we're moving too quick. And then just following that, explaining why the athlete first, athlete last is so important. And that's going to take a while, by the way. So even this session here, we didn't do that all the time. We drove them in to come with conclusions, but within a few sessions, I get to a point you don't really have to say much when you do the reviews. It'll just be bang, bang, bang. You might challenge, okay, but what do you mean by that? What if this happens? Oh, we'll do this, coach. Great, thumbs up. So what are you going to do now? They tell you off, you let them go. So that will take a few weeks if you're seeing them twice a week, but that's what we want to get to with them quite quick. Explain the rule of three, we're cool with that. Explain who can stop training and when and why. So we can give them permission. We can say you can call a timeout if you want in certain situations, only if you've gone through rule of two and you really can't sort out how much yourselves. So people aren't listening, whatever, you can call a timeout. Or you can call it, if you can't work it out and you need coach help, you can stop session, coach, we've tried everything, we need your support on this, we need your help, or we're disagreeing on something, can you give clarity? So in certain situations, you can tell them, I'm giving you permission in this session to do this. Are you cool with that? At the same time, they can tell you to shut up, so that you can give them something to say politely. So you can say, if I'm talking and you know the answers, just say, coach, I've got this. And I'll step away and you can let me go. So you're giving them permission to tell you to shut up in a polite way, which is really important. And then we go through, obviously, showing the answer. We don't want them to tell us, we want them to show us. Teacher review process. We cool with that? And then just explain these two. So we just, so the beginning of that session was the learning, correct? So predominantly learning. Some have done it before, some haven't. We had to walk through and explain it. Then we did elements of CPO as well, right? Where we go, okay, now let's go. But there's clarity difference between the two, and your style of how you taught and how they reviewed was very different, because there's clarity with it. And then the session framework. So covert recall, that's what I've just explained then, and I'll give you some examples. So generally this would be, after the warm-up, you'd throw a scenario in. And normally it's something you've done on the last session or the session before. And you're checking how well they've remembered it and can apply it without you saying anything. What you cannot do is say, right guys, remember we worked on this last time, so what are the key components? Now go and show me. That is a waste of time. Why is that real killing a covert recall if we have a chat with them first? Yeah, we're back to short-term memory again. That's not what we want. So it's literally warm-up, scenario, bang. Now what do you think that's going to do to the warm-up if they know they've got to be ready for something after every warm-up? Sorry?
If they know they're going to do something straight after,
yeah.
They warm-up.
Yeah, definitely. The intent's going to be, because they're going to know they need to be ready. And this, for me, really increases engagement. And you're only talking, it could be a couple of minutes. But the other thing that will do is it will allow you to recognise if you were successful or not in the previous session or the session before. I'd normally do it previous session straight away, so they get into this right. We need to remember, If they know that's coming, what do you think they're going to be in the previous session? If they know as soon as after the warm-up in the next session, they're going to have to show you. They're going to be, I need to know this. So again, you're increasing engagement. Now, as soon as that goes, if it's unsuccessful, that's telling you a lot about the previous session. And I'll show you some principles we put in place. But if they still haven't got it after you've done a bit of a trigger, okay, remind me what we did in the last session. This is this. Okay, now show me. And they still haven't got it. That's telling you a few things. It's telling you you didn't go over it well enough, you did it too quick, or coach was talking too much and they weren't thinking. Either way, unacceptable, coach's fault. Which means you can't do the session you planned. You're going to say, we're not ready yet, we're ready when we're ready. We're going to have to cover some of the elements we covered last time before we're ready to move on. Because it'd be wrong to move on, because they're not ready yet. So why are we ticking another box? Can we agree with that and see the value of that? But at least we've got evidence. That's the key. And then once we've gone through this, coverts, we adjust what success of this session, be able to share what success looks like. Some people struggle with that. And the reason I put it there is because I'll give you an example, even Premiership Rugby. I was saying, well, okay, what's success in the session? They go, well, the aim of it's this, Mark. I said, yeah, but what does success look like? They go, oh, I can't really explain. I said, well, how can you run the session then? If you can't explain what success looks like, how are you going to measure success for the players? So then they had to rethink the content of the session, which had to change. So we need to be able to explain what it looks like. That's going to help the players understand. Again, establish buy-in and value. Why are we doing it, guys? How's this going to impact on us? If you can't answer it or they can't answer it, you can't start the session because they need to understand value. Do they have to like it? No. They just have to see the value in it. Back to doing the things we need to, not just the things we want to be the best we can be. Then agree the strategy with the UAEs, so the acceptable or unacceptable, as we've spoke about. Use a review process and conclude. Use hot reviews, so that's just shouting their name. So you're just asking them as they run back, Jimmy, and then he's just going, awesome, nailed it, or more width, or come in, and you just thumb up, off you go. If you have this ability and you've got people on the sideline, that person looking confused or they've got it wrong, just rotate them out. Call them out, then part of the assistant's role is to do a one-to-one with that person, explaining, put them back in again. So you're not having to stop the session just because one person doesn't understand. If it's a case of you think it's something simple and other players can work it out, just go, Stevie, just help Jimmy. And while the session's still running, they can help them out. So we're still at 2 there. So again, we're not stopping the whole session just because of one thing. And this is where the hot reviews are really useful. Remember, we've got to drive them when they're doing things excellent, hot review. So they start to recognise when they do things well as well, not just looking for when it's negative. And then at this point in the session, we need to ask ourselves, right, if we've now done something before they stop and finish, I want to step away if we're in a CPO, a performance, and see can they do it without me. I need that time that's audited in that's not at the end. Why not at the end? Why don't I need to do it 3/4 of the way through? What happens if I do it at the end?
Give you time to work on it. Give you
Yes.
time to actually learn from it and work on it rather
And
than
if they,
finish.
so if they get it wrong at the 75% point, I've got time to sort it out. If they get it wrong at the end and I'm doing it, they're going home. That's not a great way to finish a session. So I'm stepping away, show me. Now I'm going to show you ways in which you can up the level of difficulty and intensity to check competency level under pressure, but you're making a conscious decision what that is. And you can change that and audit that, which we'll show you in a sec. And then at the end, obviously, players review. So this is a basic framework that you can overlay against any session. And it's once you get into this, it's very, very easy, very simple. It just gives clarity. Can you see how that starts to fit in? But you need to do the first bit first of explaining what is a coach, let's agree on non-negotiables, what's the role of an athlete, so they understand why we're doing this. And then this is what you must do. Be aware of your own state. Huge for me. Very, very talked about now and again, but undervalued in coach development. I spend a lot of time with coaches I mentor just working on this element, because if they're not in control of that, they're now inconsistent in the way they're communicating and impacting on their athletes. If we're saying we want to pursue excellence on our athletes, and that's impacting us as a coach, we have to deal with it. And there's ways you can develop that, but it's got to be number one. The first thing about that is being aware of it, because if you're not aware of where your state is, you can't manage it. So that's using your assistant coach, senior players to help you be aware of things, and let's just get some agreements in place early on. And then obviously managing, be aware of how much, what, and how you're talking. So the time's going to allow that, right, from the time clock on things. Time out again, film the timeouts. Who's talking for how long? Am I relevant? Are they relevant? In what I'm saying is something we've worked on. Are they applying it after the timeout? All these things, at least we're auditing it. At least we've got some baseline. I know I'm doing this now, is that good? This bit isn't. Okay, so what do I need to do to change? And then regressions, progressions. Now you may be great at this. I'm just putting this up there because a lot of coaches I work with and in basketball haven't been. People have learned certain plays, but they don't have true understanding of the plays. So then they struggle to break down a regression to it or an adaptation to it. So if the players can't do it, they're a bit stuck. They try and find another thing to do. So it's understanding, if you're using a certain play or a process, is understanding it well enough so you can adapt it, regress and progress. Do we know where we are with this? So that's where you might need to seek help with other coaches, but don't just listen what someone's doing or watch a play and just start copying it if you don't understand it, because you need to be able to adapt and regress it. Otherwise, you're not really coaching it, you're just copying another coach that doesn't really understand what you're doing. So I'll put it up there. It's the only tactical, technical thing, but I think it's a critical thing. And then athlete first, principle, athlete last. Be consistent, relentless, and patient is huge. Don't talk too much, which the parameters should support you with that. And then always engagement. Are they engaged? Are they daydreaming? Who stood where when I'm coming into the circle? So if the circle's here like this, and I start moving into the centre, I'm now aware I'm talking here and someone's behind me. Bad place to be. If someone stood behind someone else and their head is down, well, let's just move them around without making them look embarrassed. Let's just make sure they can hear and see. It's subtle little things like that, but they do make a difference in the engagement process. Now this is going into the framework that I just spoke on the covert. So a traditional session is standalone. So we'll plan a session, we'll run it. The next session, we might talk about